So the Queen did reveal this morning that Meghan and Harry will not return to life as senior members of the royal family. Now, effectively, this doesn't mean a huge amount more in kind of day-to-day routine than we've already seen from the couple. They haven't been active members of the royal family for over a year now, since Megxit in January 2020. However, behind the scenes and in official kind of purposes, it does have an impact on the two of them. They will both be kind of removed from the remaining royal offices and titles that they held. So they will lose all of their patronages. Meghan was a patron for the National Theatre in the UK. Harry had a number of patronages, including with the kind of rugby and football clubs and things like that. He will also be stripped of his honorary military titles. Now, we know that Harry has a great love of the military. We do know that he was devastated when he kind of had to step away from active duty many years ago. And that, I think, is going to be what really hurts him the most, is having to give up those titles that he worked so hard to get in the first place. They will still be the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. They will still be able to use his and her Royal Highness. However, it is understood that they will not use those titles in day-to-day life. Whenever they are doing any kind of professional job, they will not use their kind of royal titles, but they will continue to be the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. It seemed a little bit bitter, I won't lie to you. I think the fact that the palace released what I felt was a very kind and honest statement. They made very clear the fact that details had been hammered out, but that there was sadness within the royal family over this decision. And I think that suggests to me that a lot of discussions went on behind the scenes in order to try and salvage some kind of relationship. Meghan and Harry's response has been viewed, understandably, by a lot of people in the public as being a very petty kind of snark back at the royal family over the fact that they have lost their titles. What they're effectively saying is, you know what, fine, we don't need them anyway. We're going to prove that we can do great things without the royal family. Now, that may well be true, but I think that there was absolutely a more polite and respectful way of phrasing that than, you're wrong, we can still serve people without being patrons of big organizations. And it's also interesting to note this decision, this announcement, comes a month ahead of schedule. We were not expecting for these conversations to take place, for any official decisions to be made until the end of March. And I do think that part of that reason is because Harry and Meghan are due to sit down for their first kind of candid primetime TV interview with Oprah. That's scheduled to air on March 7th. And they really will have wanted to get these details hammered out to make sure that there was no doubt overshadowing whatever topics they choose to discuss. It's also worth noting that this interview really does not sit well with the royal family. Insiders have told us that there is a lot of anger and frustration towards Meghan and Harry over the fact that they have decided, despite making repeated claims to their privacy, they have decided to sit down on primetime TV and potentially air some really embarrassing revelations. We don't know what they're going to say. The palace, now that this official cut has been made, the palace does not have any authority over what they are permitted to say, and that's causing a lot of nervousness among palace officials and also among the royal family. Oprah is likely very grateful to have been given this opportunity, and I think she would have been prepared to ask them all kinds of questions, irregardless of whether or not they were still connected to the royal family. But I think it makes more sense for Meghan and Harry to have made this decision, to have sped up this process so that they can go into the interview kind of free and clear to discuss whatever they want without worrying about how any embarrassing revelations they choose to air might impact the kind of Megxit decision. If those conversations hadn't been signed, sealed, and delivered before they sit down in the interview, if they did or said anything that the palace doesn't approve of, it may have been used against them in moving forward the conversation. The conversation was always due to be had. I think it was important on both sides for there to be a really in-depth review of how Megxit had gone. It's also important to notice that, like, Harry moving to LA, Harry relocating to the US, him stepping away from the royal life that he has known since birth, it may not have been something that he decided he really liked. He may have gone into it, spent 12 months living that lifestyle, and realized that it wasn't for him. The review was due to take place for both parties to kind of let the dust settle, to see where the land lied, and then make decisions moving forward after there had been a bit of time to test the waters. It's obviously clear that Harry was incredibly firm about his decision. He seems to be really relishing life away from the very rigid confines of the royal family. And I think it just makes sense. If he'd already made that decision in his mind, if he already knew that this was a permanent thing, why wait any longer, particularly when they've got that TV interview to look forward to? I think it would be a bit mean to look at it as a punishment. I don't think that this announcement was ever going to come as a surprise. The fact that the two of them are no longer royal, kind of active royals, means that it doesn't make sense for them to hold patronages anymore. It also doesn't make sense for them to hold those roles when they haven't been to the UK in so long. It's very difficult to interact with organizations that you're affiliated with when you're hundreds and thousands of miles away. This isn't a punishment. I think Meghan and Harry most likely will have wanted to try and come to some kind of decision whereby they were able to keep those titles. But unfortunately, that's just not how things work. And while that might seem, mean or harsh to people who are outside of the royal family and don't understand those processes, that's just not the case. The titles of Duke and Duchess of Sussex were given to them as a kind of wedding gift. Traditionally speaking, the Queen always bestows some kind of title on her immediate family members when they marry, when they bring someone in from outside the royal family to join the group. Now, they may not be senior active members of the royal family, but Harry is still royalty. He's royalty by blood. He may not be going about his royal duties in the traditional way, but he can never not be royalty because he was born into it. Stripping their titles would, I think, have been seen as a very petty move. I think a lot of people would have determined it to be the Queen kind of lashing out and doing it for the sake of it. Them having their titles, particularly given that they've been known as the Duke and Duchess of Sussex for so long, it really does make things easy. Nobody's got divorced here. This would be a very different story if Harry and Meghan were divorcing. I think in that instance, Meghan would absolutely lose her title of Duchess of Sussex in the same way that Princess Diana did when she divorced Charles. But because the couple remain together, because Harry is still a royal by blood, it makes sense for them to continue to be able to use those titles. The really key thing is that there is no confusion for anyone over how those titles are used. So the Queen wants to make it expressly clear that while they are still the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, they are not operating on behalf of the royal family in any official capacity. Meghan and Harry have a lot of exciting things ahead of them. They've already proven that they are incredibly capable business people. We've already seen them in the 12 months since they stepped down as senior members of the royal family. They've inked deals with Netflix, they've inked deals with Spotify. I personally believe that a book deal will be next. I don't think that the first literary step that they take will be to write a tell-all about their royal experience, but I do think that a publishing deal is the next sensible step for them to make. We also know that they are going to effectively declare war on social media. Harry made very clear in a recent interview how dangerous he thinks social media is. And I know that they have been working behind the scenes with a lot of experts, with a lot of people who have been advising them over steps that they might be able to take. And during public appearances that they've made recently, social media has been a huge topic of conversation in relation to all kinds of different issues. Meghan's talked about social media in terms of bullying amongst young people. She's talked about the power that it has with regard to the Black Lives Matter movement. Harry has discussed the dangers of social media when it comes to his personal life and attacks on his wife. So that really is going to be a primary focus for them through their foundation, at least initially. But I also think that the two of them are trying to enjoy a more normal life. We know that one of the main reasons that they chose to step away from the royal family was because they want Archie to have as normal an upbringing as possible. And that will be the same mentality that they have in regard to their second child. Meghan is obviously pregnant. We don't yet know her due date, but from the size of her bump, it looks like she's very well into her pregnancy. And this really does give them the perfect opportunity to kind of wash their hands of any lingering discussions about Megxit before they bring their second child into the world. And they can now sit down for that Oprah interview and air out whatever it is that they'd like to discuss. That's really going to be a great indication of where we can expect to see the couple move next. I would imagine that the two of them, as well as looking back on the past 12 months, will also give some hints towards what they plan on achieving in the near future.